Hey guys, what's going on? Today we're getting into some explain like I'm five. Let's get into it. Why does it take so long to fall asleep initially, but feels super easy when woken up by your alarm? Sleep, like a lot of functions in your body, is controlled by hormones. To fall asleep, your body needs to produce a certain amount of sleep hormones. As soon as that threshold is reached, you fall asleep. When you get woken up by your alarm and haven't gotten enough sleep yet, your body is still full of sleep hormones, so falling back asleep is really easy. Then there are also sleep cycles. Each cycle is around 3 hours 90 minutes long. If you get woken up near the beginning or end of a cycle, you'll probably feel more or less fine. But if you get woken up in the middle, you'll feel super groggy and want to finish up the cycle as fast as possible. Can you give me an understandable example of money laundering? So say it's a storefront that sells art, but is actually money laundering. How does that work? What is actually happening? You've been stealing $20 notes from your father's wallet for a few weeks, and now have quite the stash of $100 to spend at the toy shop. You want to ask your mum to take you, but you know she'll be very suspicious of where that money came from, seeing as you had none just a few weeks ago. So you open a lemonade stand on the front lawn. You sell a few cups an hour, nothing amazing, but over the few days that you run it, each day you steadily shove one or two of those $20 notes into the takings. Your parents are amazed at your enterprise when you proudly show them the $148 you made at the end of the week after expenses. Of course, $100 of that is your stolen money. Only 48 is real profits. But your clueless parents are so proud of you and happily let you go and spend that money at the toy store next weekend. And just like that, your $100 of dirty stolen money is now sparkly clean lemonade stand money. How exactly does turning it off and on again fix such a wide variety of different tech problems? You know your way from your home to the shop, but you accidentally take a wrong turn and continue to try to correct it, but now you're lost and have no idea how to get to the shop, or how to get home. If someone were able to put you back home, assuming nothing goes wrong, you should now know the way to the shop again from here. Turning off the computer puts it back home so it knows the way to the shop again. Why do we put horseshoes on horses? Are wild horses running around with sore feet? Basically, it's to make their hooves last longer on tough surfaces like pavement and bricks. Horses' hooves are very similar to our fingernails. In fact, you can consider that horses are essentially walking on their fingertips, and that a hoof is just a really big thick fingernail at the end of what is essentially their middle finger. The hoof material grows somewhat quickly, but in the nature, because the horse is constantly moving over surfaces like dirt, rocks, and sand, their hooves are naturally worn down to a suitable level. Although for working horses, they're on roads, sidewalks, and paved stable floors. These surfaces would wear down the hoof material a lot quicker than in nature, so we put horseshoes on to protect them. The downside, of course, is since the hoof isn't being worn down naturally at all because of the horseshoes, every few months you have to have the guy come out and reshoe them. Basically, tear the old shoe out, bit of a trim, and give the hoof a manicure pedicure, then put a new shoe back on. How do we know the megalodon is extinct if we've explored less than 5% of the oceans? Because when it comes to their footprint, super predators aren't stealthy. A fish the size of megalodon requires a lot of food. It would have to live somewhere that sustains large prey, or it would have to migrate to follow the whale migrations. If nothing else, we'd be able to tell from the way whales behaved that there was something bigger than orcas out there hunting them. Something else to consider is also their teeth. Sharks shed their teeth at a ridiculous rate, and shark teeth seem to be great at being fossilized and dumped ashore. Of all the thousands of teeth that we have ever found, they've all been fossilized, meaning all of them are extremely old. We can carbon date any of them, and this is the most accurate way to date things. We simply would have found their teeth washed up or stuck in some whale bones or something by now. If current living shark teeth are found on beaches around the world in their thousands every year, it makes sense to expect to find the odd massive tooth among them. So far, nothing at all. How exactly do bankers become the richest people around, JP Morgan, Rockefeller, Rothschild, etc., when they don't really produce anything? In the simplest terms, the bank has money, and they loan you $100 if you promise to pay back $105. Repeat this on a nationwide and then global scale, and they make money without actually producing anything. And where do they get their money? The bank says if you give them $100 to hold for you, then they'll return 101 to you in 1 year. They loan out your $100 to other people during that same year and get back 105. They then give you back 101 and get $4 in the process. What made us settle on cow's milk and chicken eggs as our standard milk and egg? There've been a lot of good answers so far, but I've not seen it mentioned that sheep and goat milk is naturally homogenized. That means when the butterfat does not separate from the milk, whereas cow milk does separate. This allows for the production of butter. One of the more valuable commodities in the ancient world was fat for cooking. There's the concept of the butter line in Europe. When you go further north at a certain latitude, the people's preference for cooking fat changes from olive oil to butter, somewhere around northern Italy, southern France, and around halfway through Slovenia. Basically, after you go far enough north, butter left out at room temperature will last most of the year, but closer to the Mediterranean, it would spoil too quickly to be useful. If digestion takes 36 hours from mouth to butt, why do our butts burn less than 12 hours after eating spicy food? Digestion does not actually take that long. Most meals transit your small intestine in a couple of hours. They then sit in your colon and the excess water and salts are reabsorbed before you have a bowel movement. How do trains not slip when it's raining or when going uphill? Sometimes they do. Our transportation calls October and November the wet leaf season. It happened to a commuter train which slid past my station. It traveled in reverse so far that the train was almost back at the previous station. Why is cave diving so dangerous, to the point where people with over 20 years of diving experience will still not try it? Becoming disoriented is very easy. Swimming in an undisturbed area can easily stir up sediment to the point of zero visibility. Getting lost and running out of air is game over. In open water, if you're in trouble, you swim up. In a cave, you would have to find your way back out, meaning it'll be a lot longer before you could surface, even if you knew exactly how to get out. You dive 20 meters down and swim horizontally for 500 meters. You're still only 20 meters from the surface. Swim down 20 meters to a cave, and 500 meters in the cave, you're 520 meters from the surface. So it goes without saying that it's a lot easier if all you have to do is swim up. Why do European trucks have their engine below the driver, compared to the United States trucks, which have their engine in front of the driver? The length of European trucks is limited as a whole. To maximize load capacity, the engine is under the cab to save 2 meters of length. America did have cab overs, but as there are less restrictions of the cab in America, the conventional won over. Also in Europe, a truck, HGV, is likely to board ferries at some point in its life, where maximizing space is key to reducing costs. In the US, it's unlikely a truck would ever be on a ferry. Why do British people sound like Americans when they sing, but not when they speak? I had voice lessons in high school, and to get better sound, I was taught to change the pronunciation of some words. When enough of the sounds you associate with different regions get changed to be something that sounds better when sung, they sound more similar. Why is it healthy to strain your heart through exercise, but unhealthy to strain it through stress, caffeine, nicotine, etc.? What is the difference between these kinds of cardiac strain? Exercise is like stretching a balloon prior to blowing into it. You're maintaining its elasticity. Chronic stress on the heart is like inflating the balloon fully for a month, then deflating it back down. It'll deflate down to twice the size it started, with all the elasticity gone. And that is heart failure. If water is transparent, why are clouds white? Saran wrap, also known as cling film, is transparent. Now crumple a bunch of it up into a ball. It will now look white. A saran wrap ball, much like a cloud, has a lot of surfaces in it. It's not just a solid ball. It's got tiny, sometimes microscopic, pockets of air. Light goes through it, comes back out, has to go through it again, and then come back out again. That makes it much less transparent than if it were just a solid mass. Similarly, with clouds, they're not just solid water, they're tiny little droplets of water with air gaps between them, so light has many surfaces to pass through.